I mean, it used to be so bad. It used to be so bad. We only collect with MetaMask. It's only on mainnet. The transaction fees are crazy because something else is going on. Like there's, you can't pay with a credit card. You can't log in with now. It's like you can go on a platform. You can sign up with an email. You can go buy a music NFT for $1 using Apple Pay face scan. And it's in your wallet, and you might not even know it's an NFT. And then you just start getting access to things, comment on the song, etc. I mean, that's where we're at. User experience wise, we've come a long way. It's been a lot of time built in to get to that point. Now the focus of a lot of these founders is on some of the things that people are starting to point out, where it's like building out experiences to be more extensive beyond just ownership.
Yeah, I do not wear my heart on my sleeve. I cannot let them see in too deep, cause I know they can use it against me. Only one I can trust is me. I got niggas I keep around me.
Episode 43 of Invest in Music with BlockchainBrett. Today we're here to talk about the bull case for music NFTs. He's the founder of an early stage crypto fund called PTC Crypto, a longtime collector, and has a lot of great insights to offer. As a reminder, you can collect this episode on investinmusic.xyz. It's the best way to support our guests, so without further ado, let's get into a much needed episode with BlockchainBrett. All right, we are back. We got BlockchainBrett in the building. Highly anticipated episode. Brett, how are we feeling today, man?
Feeling good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I know we've been talking about this episode for a while. It comes at a very opportune time. The sentiment out there has, not been too great lately. And I wanted to bring you on because you've been a longtime collector, a longtime investor, supporter, very close friend of mine. So I'm excited to just kind of unpack and really just have an open conversation about what's going on and kind of how we can help address some of these comments out there.
Yeah, I say feeling good, but in reality, it's been tough out there this past couple weeks in the socials of the music NFT space. Been out there just trying to stand up for it a little bit. So I'm excited to get into it and get back to the roots and talk about how we see it.
Nice. Well, before we dive into the nuance here, why don't you give a quick background on yourself for those who aren't familiar with your work?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Brett Shear. I'm the managing partner at Palm Tree Crew Crypto, PTC Crypto for short. We invest in early stage consumer crypto focus, NFT technology powered products and infrastructure. We start that since early 2021 is the start of the fund. And before that, I was a founder in the space, two different companies, one called Fleek, another one called Balance, which was inside of Consensus, and a longtime NFT collector. So I started collecting crypto art in 2018, first half of 2018, and on Super Rare and all the crypto art platforms that come after that, pretty much, and also music NFTs, and just realized early on that NFT technology is going to power all sorts of different transformations in media and entertainment, and for creators, and to get ahead of that and be early to each of those different verticals and waves. And we've so personally, as a collector of on different platforms, and as a user, as a friend of artists, or investor in artists, or supporter, however you want to call it, and also as an investor in platforms and infrastructure from our fund.
And I also want to expand on Palm Tree Crew as a whole, because I think this context is very helpful to people. So Palm Tree Crew Crypto, obviously the crypto side of Palm Tree Crew. I just want you to talk a little bit more about the proximity you have to artists and kind of music as a whole, because I think it'll help sort of ground, the footing of this conversation, that you're not just coming at this as like some dude who just YOLO made a bunch of money on NFTs and now that's like the only thing you care about. Like, you've been around music and success stories in music more broadly for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's true. Even as early as 2020, I was already collecting music NFTs and excited about it. So, and already building relationships with artists. But in 21, when things started to pick up in the mainstream, the Blau album sale and some other nifty gateway drops, my brother Miles, who co-founded Palm Tree Crew, which is Kygo's lifestyle brand, the EDM artist, he came to me and was like, oh, I want to work with you on some of these and kind of, so we did Kygo's NFT drop on Nifty Gateway together. And then it kind of led to some other artists like in the sort of Palm Tree Crew network. I worked on the Weekends NFT drop as well. And with some other really cool artists like Sam Feld, Jimmy Buffett, and like the kind of, mainstream side of things, which like was a lot of and learned a lot from that. And that was definitely some inspiration for us to partner together to invest in this category, in the kind of creator consumer crypto category. So yeah, and I've seen my brother, he's my brother. So, we grew up together and he's discovered Managed Kygo for 11 years now. And now like maybe 15 artists, has a record label with joint venture with Sony, publishing company, like all that kind of stuff. And that secondhand experience of just like learned about it and watched it and, been lucky to go to shows and to see it from the brother perspective.
And then taking that a step further, I've been so impressed by your ability to go from working on drops like Kygo and The Weeknd to supporting emerging up-and-coming artists in the on-chain music space. So I know that you were behind the Board Brothers, which is a really exciting project that we can talk about, but you've also been a pivotal collector and advocate for artists like Daniel Allen, Bloody White, Rio. I mean, the list goes on and on. You're literally wearing a Criteria hat here on the podcast. You got a Chaos shirt on, one of Songcamp's biggest supporters. And, I just want to give you a lot of credit from not only having been involved in that whole Nifty Gateway hype cycle that happened, but then channeling that energy into, what has become really the foundation for this on-chain music community and a lot of what we're going to be talking about in this episode today.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I started off native, I'm like a crypto guy first. That's like the roots. And so I started off by collecting crypto artists, Xcopy, Coldie, Hackatal, like that first wave. So I've seen it firsthand as a collector and user how much things can evolve and how those early native artists can, change in a short span of time. So that definitely drives a lot of the confidence. And like, that's what I'm used to being like, that's what excites me the most. That's like, I think the best use case for these ecosystems, to start off. And so, yeah, artists like Daniel and Rio and Bloody and Latasha, and just like, there's a lot of examples, which is also like one of those things that, we think about all the time, and then you look on Twitter and there's all these negative takes, and it's like people are just not thinking about all these incredible artists and success stories that have delivered and put so much work into this space. And they really are like, yeah, just a great success story so far. So that's definitely the most passionate area. And then, when things get exciting and there's bull markets, then it creates more opportunities for more mainstream things. I think over time it'll blend more organically. In the long term, you won't be able to tell the difference between a mainstream artist or a niche artist and what platform or tools or release strategy, et cetera, they're doing. But for now, as we, kind of establish this space, for sure, it kind of gives and flows.
It's very interesting to see the way that artists like Xcopy and Coldie and some of these more crypto native artists get recognized within the wider NFT sphere as being very quote unquote successful. Musicians don't really have that same level of, I'm going to call it respect for lack of a better term, right? Like I think people look at people like, I'll even throw Beeple in there, like Beeple, Xcopy, Coldie, all these like early generation of crypto artists as undeniable success stories about why the NFT space has value. But then when it comes to musicians putting their art on chain, it doesn't connect the same. And I have some thoughts about why that might be the case, but why do you feel like there hasn't been the same level of recognition for an artist like Xcopy as maybe someone who's been having the same level of impact within the early music space today?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is timing, and it's behavioral adjustments or perspective. So, early on in crypto art, it was similar. That early on, the number one question you'd get in like 2018 was, what do you mean there's no physical version? Like you're just buying just the digital, right? There's analogies for that type of question where like really early on in the music NFT space, it was like, wait, you're buying, like, what about, you don't own the royalties? Like, why are you buying a music NFT without the world, right? So it's just like, it's these perspective things that get over. I feel like we're at the point where a lot of people have started to understand, what it means to just become a collector of music NFTs and aren't asking some of those questions. Other questions are like, right click save as, like that's something we've gotten over. Like if anyone can copy it, then like, why is it valuable? Obviously there's scarcity in the tokens and holding them in your wallet themselves. And just like traction, like that's one really big thing is perspective. And then with art, the first thing was that it's very similar to the existing art industry model of like, it is a collector based economic system where, physical art, it's collector bases, right? So it relates that the copying over relates really strongly as a narrative. So I think that's another perspective, another behavioral thing to move past, where obviously music is monetized differently. So, in music, it's advertising or subscription based business model, and then back end royalties. So, to be able to say, okay, now just build a collector base and take that model of like unlocking the full potential of value of each song or each artist and having upside in the artist's career and being able to value it directly and, building that direct relationship with the artist. So all these kinds of things that model brings out, that's so exciting. People, they're just not used to it. So it's a big change in that regard. So yeah, that's a big part of behavioral. And then market wise, if you look at the history of the crypto art space, look at 2019, tough year, 2019, early 2020, like it feels a lot like it feels right now, where a lot of collectors weren't as active. There's way, way less volume, almost no volume. The founders of these platforms like Super Rare, and that was one of the earliest ones. There's a couple others that were around at that time, were considering shutting down. They weren't sure if it's going to work. They couldn't raise money, right? Like there's despair for sure. But the concepts prevailed, like the idea of digital art can be valuable, and you can build a collector base around it, and there can be a market for it. Onchain, it obviously worked, right? People look at it successful. It's now back in the bear market. It's down again too, right? It's much higher. In 2018, it was $50,000 of volume, right? 2021, 3 years later, there's like over the billions, right? In the billions. So it's crazy to think how fast that happened. And people forget, and then also the perspective of like, what is success changed so fast? It's like music NFTs doing $30-40 million in volume or something like that in the first couple of years is like amazing. It's a great start, right? Like, yeah, sure, we have there's a bear market. You have to realize too, is like the market dynamics of timing is another aspect of it, right? So that's a big part of what we're saying here, but it's like, the whole NFT market is down. The whole crypto market is down. You have FTX and Terra, all these major events crushing the whole overall market. The whole global macro economy of a recession. And it's just like, what do you expect? Like the concept of bringing open markets as business models to music is obviously going to be hindered this early on in its life cycle, when all these, when it's a niche of all these other bigger markets this early on, the first 2 years. And so I think it's just like expectations too. It's like, what do you like? What's success so far? And, just believe in the models and look at the benefits of what it can bring, be able to look at like what a good outcome looks like and understand that that's what we're working towards. And one day over time, this market will stand on its own. It will have more features beyond speculation even, and it will have, a lot more to it. And even if it does, even if it's just speculation based, I'm still bullish on it. But yeah, I think there's, we can get more into that stuff.
Yeah, so let's unpack this. There's a lot of layers here. I want to start with kind of the biggest sounding board for this conversation, which was, why would I buy a music NFT when I can listen to the song on Spotify? I feel like we've been down this road a lot. And so without you kind of giving like the high level take on it, in today's economy, in today's world, it's 2024. Why would you buy a music NFT when you can listen to a song on Spotify? Give me your most like real time take on that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like we've been answering this question for so long already. I mean, for us, it's like, for you and I, it's like, we've been saying it over and over. But yeah, in reality, it's still so early, so we're going to have to keep repeating it. Do you want ownership and upside in the artist and the content, the music itself? Like ownership, there's a lot of benefits from owning and collecting something. I'll probably break down in three major buckets. One being part of your on-chain identity, like part of your identity online. And the second being a relationship with that artist and with that content. So with that artist mostly. And third, part of ownership is upside, speculation. If the artist does well, you can benefit from it. I mean, I think that's a really cool thing. So yeah, and it brings all sorts of really good benefits from that too, where it's like, okay, now an artist is being valued like that, their market becomes bigger, like the economics of scale are better. A couple of collectors, a few collectors, 100 collectors, small amounts of collectors can add up, right? Like there's no cap, there's no limit on what someone or a group of people might think something is worth. And so that enables that. It also gives them full control over, I mean, as in assuming it's like, this gives you the power to be an independent artist because it's part of your capital formation process. It's a lot better than a lot of options out there where artists these days are definitely not treated like startups, right? Like the people aren't normally investing for equity at some not super dilutive amount of equity in the artist. It's usually like a loan-based type thing. So it's like being able to give that opportunity for artists to advance their relationship with how they own their own content. And then beyond that, as probably third major thing, is like the relationship with fans. I mean, it's like way more, there's a lot more fabric. There's a lot more meaning to someone sending a signal to you that they think that your work is valuable, having an on-chain or having a history, a provenance of, and a record of how many they collected or how much they've spent or how early did they start buying. These are all factors that add into like an online relationship that actually become meaningful, where instead of like a fan that's been there since the first show 10 years ago and then is now there when they're playing at Madison Square Garden and like they just get a quick second to go run up to the artist and say, hey, I went to your first show. They have to quickly explain everything. It's like, okay, like now in this world, the next big one, maybe it's Daniel Allen, like there's a lot more context and fabric online about like who's done what within his world and what that means to him. So that's what I'm talking about, like relationships. That's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of like more data points for people to like build relationships online based off.
I think one thing that's interesting is that people like to poke holes in the speculation size first and foremost, which I think we should get into, and then also like the relationships themselves. And I think one thing that's happened as a result of this last bear market is that early on with music NFTs, I would argue that the relationships were extremely strong. You would buy a one-of-one from an artist on catalog, you would immediately have a conversation with them. It was literally the most direct way to build a relationship with that artist. Kind of feels like now there's not a guarantee that if you collect something on chain that you're going to have a personal relationship with that artist. And I think that's a good thing, all things considered. But I think when you kind of zoom out a bit and you look at some of these takes that people are having about why music NFTs haven't worked, the largest one that I see is speculation. Like everyone sold music NFTs as this thing that was going to make people a bunch of money and it didn't, which we can start there. And then the second one is what's cool about these relationships that's different from the relationships that happened in the past. So let's unpack that a bit. Let's start with the speculation side. What is your take to someone who says music NFTs have failed because they don't have a secondary market?
Yeah. Again, it's a timing thing, but and the overall market thing. But Yeah, I mean, I think that speculation is a feature of ownership, right? Being able to have upside in an artist, a piece of content, music is a feature. It's really cool. I mean, you can't do that on Spotify. There's no upside, right? Monetarily, or in those other ways too. Like, there's not much. I mean, everyone loves Spotify, Wrapped, right? End of the year Spotify, like, and you get to show off these things. I mean, those are a very small amount of data compared to the kinds of things you can build on chain, and what is being created. So people take pride in that. But yeah, I think like in reality, like a big paradigm shift here, a big transformation is in the business model, right? Like speculation enables a market. Markets are very powerful. I mean, we have everyone knows about the stock market. It's like it's a lot of big companies trading for a lot of money. Like, it's not that much. It's the same concept. Like, if you like an artist, you think they're really good, you can buy their music NFT, and you have upside because, like, if they do really well and it's scarce, then there's only a certain amount of them from that period of time of people that appreciated it, that have that relationship, that value it. More as they grow and more collectors, more people will appreciate it, more people will think it's valuable, right? Like, so it's upside, and I think it's a feature. Now, the downside of speculation in markets is like when things go down, like nobody likes that. I mean, nobody wants to be in a global recession. But yeah, I mean, that's the downside. I mean, the pros are better economics for artists, more control, better capital formation, like all the same reason why the stock market hasn't gone away. Like there's a lot of benefits, right? But obviously the downside is that a market could go down, especially this early on in its life. I mean, I imagine in the first 5 years of the stock market, there was some volatile swings. I'm sure the first bear market was a disaster, similar like, 2018 crypto, or even some of those earlier crazy swings back in the day in Bitcoin, right? So I think that's just, it's not, people not thinking big picture enough and realizing like, this is going to take some time, and it's a new market, and it's a really promising new thing. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. Now, I think to your next point where it's like, okay, what about, essentially what points to like moving beyond speculation, right? And like the relationship with the artist and like these other things, right? And I look at it as kind of like gamification, right? So it's like speculation is good. Gamification is also good. Like, it's not like you want to get rid of one. You just want to have more, like you want to continue to improve and build more features towards more gamification so that speculation isn't the only thing. Like, it's part of it, right? And in reality, you want to have like more experience loops, more, kind of gameplay experience, like things for people to engage with, users to engage with around that content more frequently, or like more touch points, right? Like whether it's sending a message in a chat or getting access to some exclusive content, or, being a top collector, getting tiered access to something, or even an IRL experience, or like, I think a lot of that stuff isn't as built out. The other thing, like there's more parts of gamification that make a lot of sense, right? Like, and that's, I think, a big reason too, when you point to, it's like these early on, when you're collecting a 101 from Daniel Allen or something like that, you get a FaceTime. Right now, like, it's a little harder to scale that. Now it comes down to like, we need to get more of these features like built in native. I mean, what do you expect the artist to do as they get to 1,000 collectors, et cetera? Like, they need to have more infrastructure to facilitate scaling relationships. And I think that's part of like this next phase. And more big areas of gamification, a couple more big areas. Another one is social gratification, I think. So when people, it's very similar to the model of like gaming, like games, Web2 games, right? Like you play a game for free, and then, you start to get access to or win or, claim better items. And then you even start paying for some items that you can't win or that you want to get, that, So what happens is as soon as you buy some skin or, some piece of clothing, digital clothing, etc., you get to wear that immediately online, and show it off, right? And that's something that is like the equivalent of that so far in like content, music NFTs. There's things like leaderboards and audience boards. I mean, people take pride in being the top of an audience board of a song that they love. That's because people see immediately, if there's 100 collectors and you're the top one, you know every single person is checking that board to see where they are, and they see you're the top of it, and that's a social signal, right? There's a lot more things like that in the social side of things. And then aside from, game loops and social gratification, the community aspect is a big part too. I think you see it a lot in PFPs and generative assets. Like if you look at Squiggles, or you look at CryptoPunks, or even Bored Apes, and a lot of these projects, it accomplishes a really cool feature for community where it's one of one. You're unique within a set of things, right? And you look at even Sound has that, where there's a golden egg on the drop. There's a one of the whole set, right? But this concept of uniqueness within a group, I think those features are. So these are things that are there's some early examples of those, and there's a lot that needs to be built upon that. And I think as those come, the power of speculation remains, and it's a good thing. But I think it's also a good thing to have this other part, so you don't have to depend on speculation, because the swings can be brutal, right? And you want to be able to sustain and continue touch points, have more active users, and not get hurt when the market swings down. But I do think speculation when the market goes up is going to fuel a fire, and it's going to bring in a lot of new users, and kind of every cycle that's going to be a repeat thing as it's an open market.
I'm going to add on to that too, that I think some other reasons why collecting is exciting today is that I'm going to break this down into a crypto native audience and then a non-crypto native audience, because I think the reality is most of the people who are collecting on chain today are super crypto native. And so for those people, the reason why I think music NFTs are exciting is that it's the best way to play around with layer twos, in my opinion. I mean, these products, whether it be Sound or Zora or another block, they're really integrating layer two in a very meaningful way. Where most of the other applications you see of L2 are DeFi products. They're DEXs, they're lending tools, perpetuals, whatever it might be. There's not really a great class of consumer products using layer twos right now. And I would say that music has been the leading use case for layer twos currently. If you want to get a real person on chain, you're probably not going to get them sold on making a swap on a layer two. It's more likely that they're going to come in through an interface and a format that they're used to. Everyone knows what music is. Everyone knows what these artists are. Everyone knows what these songs are. And there's actually real artists that are having career moments right now that are putting their music on chain. I mean, whether it be an artist that has 1 million monthly listeners, a couple 100,000 monthly listeners. We're not talking Drake and Beyonce are putting their music on chain, but there are some people who are having very serious careers that are quietly putting their music on chain. And I think for someone that's trying to explain what does crypto look and feel like in the absence of you buying Dogecoin to try and make 100x return, I really do feel music is a great way to get someone started. Where if you're just trying to put your friend onto a crypto product and try and teach them what's going on in the space, I would argue that these music products are a great way to kind of get there. Now, if we go over to the non-crypto native user and they say, why would I care about buying a music NFT? What's the point of doing it for me? To Brett's point right now, there's no way to cut through the noise and really actually get into a room with an artist today. And so I think that what currently exists is that if you collect something on a platform like Sound, the likelihood that you're going to have an interaction with that artist is 1,000x higher. Now, I know that's not a promised thing, but I would also say that if you want to support an artist directly, let's say that you really love a song, let's say that they're not playing a show in your city, let's say you just want to be able to give them something to show your appreciation for their career, collecting a song for $5 or less is a great way just to know that you're paying that artist directly to their pocket in real time. And that might not be a sexy thing that's oh, this is what's going to get people stoked to collect that mass, but you can't really give an artist $1 right now. You can maybe go and buy their things on Bandcamp, but most artists don't really use Bandcamp. If you listen to their music on Spotify, they're not going to get paid for a long time. When they do get paid, it's going to be a very fractional amount. You can maybe buy a merch drop and stuff like that. But I also want to highlight that, there's this argument that music NFTs don't have a secondary market, artists release a lot of music. And if you look at an artist's career and their discography and their catalog, it typically comes down to a couple of songs. Now for, very prominent acts, they obviously have albums, they have bodies of work that are really important and whatnot. But when you go to their Spotify page, it's extremely top heavy. You'll notice that artists will have 1, 2, 3 songs that are generating the vast majority of their streams. And I would challenge us to think about that in the context of music NFTs, where just because an artist is putting out 20, 30 songs on chain, there should not be an expectation that all 30 of those songs are going to have a secondary market. There's probably going to be a secondary market for 1, 2, 3 of those songs that have the vast majority of the attention. And so I just want to kind of separate that, because I think right now people have this preconceived notion that every time I drop a song on chain, there's going to be a secondary market. And I just don't think that that's really likely.
Also, it's what if you're right? What if this artist is actually amazing? That is one of the coolest feeling, one of the feelings that you'll see every day with a regular everyday music listener person is you find an artist, you love them, you listen to them all the time. Other people aren't listening to them as much. It's not mainstream yet. This happened to everyone. 1 or 2 of those artists that you've listened to over this time have blown up, huge, right? I don't know. Maybe it's some rapper, it could be any genre, right? And it's and when that happens, your solution is every time a song comes on, when you're around other people, is to tell them, I used to listen to a song when they only had 1 million streams. That's your best, that's all you got, right? And it's okay, well, people are really passionate about music. They love music. They love following artists. They love finding new artists. They like picking who's going to be big next, it's a fun game that we all kind of play to some degree. Some people are way more into it than others, and it's a spectrum. But this is if you're really into music and you think music well and artists, this is a chance to put your money in your mouth and be involved and have some upside. That's pretty cool. I think that's one really straightforward narrative that I think can go mainstream in itself.
And how do you think about the conversation around the pricing of on-chain music? So just to kind of break this down, when a platform like Sound came out, the average drop was 0.1 ETH. There's 25 editions. When Catalog was having a moment, these one-on-ones were selling for 1 ETH. Now the price of most songs on-chain are debatably free. For all intents and purposes, we're going to say they cost maybe $1 or $2. And I know within the wider artist community of on-chain music, there's a feeling that free music is really bad and we're going backwards. I would be really curious to hear if you agree with that perspective, if you have different thoughts on it, or what your kind of take is on the current state of the pricing of music NFTs.
Yeah, it brings back up the secondary market stuff you were talking about too. And I don't know, I think back to crypto art again too. Some of these artists have released a lot. I don't actually know the exact number, but I'd guess Xcopy has 200 pieces. And the Coldy has over 100. If you put that the equivalent of songs, that'd still be a lot of songs, and they have a floor price that's still very significant, even though they've released that much art. That's always something that I think artists have had to deal with too. It's collectors are release less, so it's worth more, and that's not always the case. It's definitely sometimes releasing more can make it more valuable too. More work. Whatever it takes to, just keep going, just keep doing whatever you think is right. I think on that point, why the price is down, the market's down, so the prices are down. And then basically what happened is because the price is down, people want to sell more to make up for it, because the sum of more priced less is almost, ends up equaling closer to when they were selling less for more money. So it's to try to make the same amounts and just juggle how much you have to do. And then I think free ones ended up fully free ones, which even still there is a cut that artists make from the mint, the mint fee. So there still is money made to the artist. But the free ones, I think it's more that theory from the artist where it's I just want more people to be a part of it, to collect it. I want to grow my audience, which is super sound as well, right? And you have that same thing in crypto art too, where you have a 101, you have some additions, you have open mints, like, and these things achieve different things. I mean, some of the open mints, I mean, and I keep saying XCOPY, but if you look at like, what's it called? Max Payne, right? Like, I mean, originally the open edition was in the thousands. The floor at one point was multiple ETH, like, so it's just an example, right? And the point is like, I think that the secondary market will come back. I think it will come back, and I think the stuff that artists that have released a lot of editions of things are, will obviously will have a harder time like doing as high of a price of secondary, but also it was sold for significantly less. So like anything up from there is good, right? So, and then and some of the more limited things will probably perform better. But it's definitely a market thing and a timing thing. I do think the secondary market is going to come back.
I also think that musicians have a higher mountain to climb in terms of what it'll take for that secondary market to come back to them. And, I'd love your take on this, but I think for me, what a artist having a strong secondary market looks like is that they are popping in the real music industry. They're playing a bunch of shows, they're headlining festivals, they're selling out arenas, they're having a song with 1 billion streams. Like, we're talking like this artist actually needs to be legitimately popping. We're not talking like, okay, 1 million monthly listeners, maybe they're playing a couple headline shows here and there. Like, they need to be undeniably a household name. And so I think the challenge right now is what we're seeing is that there hasn't been an artist that has really broken out to being like a household name, let's call it. And so you've seen that their secondary market has historically been limited to collectors of on-chain music, the future believers in these people. And there hasn't really been a opportunity for them to have a real secondary market to emerge because, like you said in the earlier half of this conversation, and actually Kygo took 10 plus years to develop. I think people underestimate how long it takes for artists to actually become significant household names and how much time is required for that to happen. And most of these artists that are putting their music on chain today are in the very early innings of their career. They're in years 1, 2, 3. Maybe they've been producing for 5, 7 years, but they've only started really seriously developing their brand for the first year or two. So, I think that people would challenge the like timing thing by saying, oh, well, how much time is it going to take? But my argument would be, we need 5 to 10 years to even give this thing a real look in the first place. To be like, if an artist genuinely pops off in 10 years from now and there's not a secondary market for their things on chain, then you can say, okay, maybe this didn't work. But until there's a real use case of an artist having music on chain that becomes a globally recognized brand, I think it's not fair to say that this space is a failure.
Yeah, look, I think the other thing this relates to is a lot of people will say, the user experience is so bad. You're focused on the collector, you're focused on the artist and just the collector making money, and but what about the regular user? What about the person who just wants to listen to music, right? And I'll make the point that over time it's actually better for the regular user. Okay, like, so the user experience is like, put it everywhere and put it out for free and let anybody listen to it. It's kind of more like a gaming model of like the free to play, where like Fortnite's free to play, but then like, you can upgrade and buy in-game items and all that stuff, right? It's the same concept where like, imagine you as a listener, like, go onto an app and listen to all the music for free without ads or paying a subscription. Pretty sweet, right? And then there's a, aspect of like, okay, these songs are collectible, they're ownable, and you start to get into that realm of things and start to buy it as you like a certain artist, or as you want to grow within that artist community, or continue to, put down more conviction. Or maybe it's some of the aspects around gamification where you want to get access to that chat, or you want to, see the exclusive content, or be in that little tighter chat circle that talks more about, insider things that only those people would get. Right. And, I think like that is a good point. It's like, and like, you see, there's been some things saying like, why, like, just put it out on Spotify. It's like, you put it out everywhere. The whole point is like, you're creating like a place for you to, grab value and monetize. It's like the bottom of the funnel. the distribution becomes completely wide open, right? It's not like right now, streaming platforms make money based on consumption and distribution of the content. It's like, right, the model, this flips the model to value it directly and make the distribution and consumption free. So it's really good for the consumer. And, you know, all the benefits we talk about for the artist too, and the consumer as a collector. But yeah, so like I'll say that it's like, yeah, put it on Spotify, put it wherever. It doesn't matter, because and also there will be music NFT native listener apps. It'll look like Spotify, but I mean, look at Spinamp, right? Shout out Spinamp. It's like it's you know, supposed to look like Spotify. I mean, the app looks pretty decent. It definitely has some room to grow UX wise. You know, Spotify's been around for a long time. But it, you know, people can go on there, listen to music for free, any music NFT aggregated across any platform. And if you like the song, you can collect it directly in the app. It's kind of like OpenSea meets Spotify, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't see a reason why, and like user experience wise, I don't see a reason why you can't have both apps. I have Spotify and Spinamp on my phone, right? Like I'll listen to both. There was a period of time where I was listening to Spinamp a lot more than Spotify. Right now, this past week, I've listened to Spinamp more than Spotify. There's a few songs I've been, you know, really enjoying. So basically, the point is like when I'm in music NFT world, when I'm in this new world where like things are ownable, it's a different mode. I find it more fun. It's like I'm listening to a song and I'm constantly thinking like I got my like, you know, oh, is this song really good? Do I like it? Do I actually like? What about the artist? Oh, let me check out the other songs. It kind of turns it more into a game of like, you know, do I want to get involved with this artist right now, right? I find it to be a more like, imagine if like, I think as the catalog builds and gets bigger and it's free. So like, I don't have to pay to use these apps because they monetize by selling NFTs, transaction fees, things like that, right? So the consumption's free. And then I can decide like, oh, which ones I want to get ownership in, what I have a stake in, what I want to be a part of. Like maybe I want to get involved in their community and stuff. You know, and on Spotify, you don't have that. It's great. It's a great app and the listening's amazing and it has the biggest catalog by far. You know, obviously you should be, those same artists should be releasing there too. And you can listen to those artists there as well. But you can't buy it there. You can't collect it there and you can't get in that way, right? So you can't get upside. Or whatever, all those other different types of features that are going to come along the way. So I think that the user experience is actually going to be really cool. And that, I think that was.
I saw some comments about people saying just put it on Spotify. And I think people fail to realize that pretty much all the songs that are on chain right now are definitely on Spotify. And it's not about it being like exclusive to being on chain. It's not about like taking an anti-Spotify narrative. To Brett's point, it's just another distribution platform. Like, why would you not have your music there? That's the way that I frame it to people is like, if there's one person in the world that would want to collect one of your songs, why would you not have it there just to have one more person collect it?
Yeah. There's literally no downside. And there's not an expectation. It's like, oh, the second you create an NFT, you know, it's going to be worth a lot. No, it's not how it works. Like when you put a song on a chain, it gives it that the ability, the potential, right? It gives it like the vehicle, and you know, so there's obviously still work in it from there, but like, yeah.
Now, how do you think about examples like lately where artists have been putting their music on chain and they're still getting all this pushback from their fan base, where the fans are seeing that, you know, a song is being released as an NFT, they hear that word and they think that it's super negative, they think it's terrible for the environment, and then you have these examples where artists who have traditional fan bases are getting a lot of pushback because they're utilizing this technology that has a bad sentiment to it.
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. It's definitely annoying. It makes it harder for bigger artists. You know, I think like an earlier on artist that's embracing the technology, you know, from the beginning of their career. So like that next, like the artist tomorrow, right? The artist that's been here since the start of music NFTs, basically, isn't going to have that issue, right? Because if you're doing it earlier and it's part of your growth and it's part of the story, like it's part of your community already. Sometimes I think, you know, integrating it into existing audiences that don't understand it is what creates the backlash.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, yeah, it's just, unfortunately, NFTs in the mainstream eye have got a lot of backlash. It's not unreasonable that they have, right? Like huge market swings, like fraud issues, scam issue, hacking. Like, I mean, the user experience has been terrible before. Like, so it's like the mainstream audience, they hear NFT, there's a lot of negative connotations, and there's backlash for people that are doing it. The other part is like education too. I mean, I think like when we were talking about the behavioral adjustment, the perspective adjustment of like realizing why to buy a music NFT and like what the benefits are, learning the benefits of it. Not everybody knows that. So it takes a snowball effect. It gets easier and easier for the next person to buy into it though. I've seen that firsthand, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, right now it's really easy to dump on music NFTs. So easy, right? It's much harder to have conviction right now and to say, hey, this is the reasons why, these are the benefits, this is why it's going to work. Or even before right now, when you and I were collecting on one-on-ones on catalog and the first Genesis pieces or second pieces of these different artists in 2020, early 2021. I mean, like it's crazy to think that it's been like 2.5 years or something like that. It was even crazier. It was even harder, right? It was even hard. You probably had to convince yourself even. Like now I've already convinced myself of all these things that I understand or I've learned all these benefits. At first, I asked myself those same questions. What about the royalties? Can music be valuable? It's a different format. You listen to it. It's not visual. Like I literally asked myself all these same questions when I was first starting. I just got over them way faster than a lot of other people have, right? And I started to understand and look towards the other side of it. So that takes time and it snowballs. Like the earlier people, like the earlier psychology barrier, like once it's popular, and then it's just right, and people just follow along and just join in, and it's just way more clear. So right now it's one of those moments where like maybe it's not even as bad as when it first started. Obviously, not even close. There's way more people. There's been all this volume. There's traction. There's success stories. There's artists to point to that have had success. There's been fundraisers. Artists have raised $1 million, or there's been song co-ops that have raised money. There's been over $10 million in volume on sound, and there's Zora, and there's multiple platforms. There's platforms building on top of them to, that have also raised, and there's a lot that has been successful. And so right now, when everyone's dumping on it because the volume's down, that'll change. Like it'll come up and things will go well again. And in reality, the success stories are like examples that people need in order to understand things. So yeah, it's unfortunate because I mean, that's just the reality of the situation where it's like more people need to learn and understand it and get educated and learn about it. So I would say like, I don't know, like for that artist that is dealing with that, props to you for taking on the adventure, and please stick with it. And I think it'll work out. Yeah.
And what is your response to the people who are taking this opportunity to kind of pile on to dumping on music NFTs right now? Like just as a broad general sentiment, you see all these takes on Twitter, music NFTs are dumb, music NFTs have failed, they're, going to zero, et cetera. What's your kind of general reaction to the collective sum of the whole?
Well, my reaction has been to reply on Twitter. Yeah. I've been replying to some of these threads because it bothers me. Obviously, I mean, like there's people, it's obvious people make points and, you have your own opinions. And, but a lot of what I've seen, there's always, there's the pro side to it. And so I'm going in and saying those things because, if someone finds out about it through that, then they should see the other side of it as well. But yeah, I mean, I think like in reality, it's think about who's really, really close to the situation. Think about who, is really involved and understands it and is building towards it, right? The key founders in this space. Founders are closer to it than anybody. They're right in the meat of it. They're spending their entire lives building for it. Okay, maybe even closer to them, artists, right? These are all the artists releasing music NFTs that have had ups and downs, that have had the successes themselves. So I mean, platforms, Sound, Catalog, Zora, Spinap, Arpeggi. There's Songcamp. There's a lot of music projects, and those founders are super ingrained in the culture and have a really good understanding of what the benefits are, what the downsides are, what the experiences have been. The artists, Daniel Allen, Rio, Latasha, right? There's so many. I mean, there's thousands of artists at this point, which is awesome to say. And there's a bunch. There's I don't know how many, but there's a lot. Probably dozens or hundreds or something that have had like really good success and are really happy, and this has changed their lives completely financially, right? Ask them what they think, right? There's investors, people invest in these platforms like me and you, right? And there's users and collectors, also us and more people that are collecting songs, loving the music. There's people that listen to this music every day, right? There's people that are on Spinamp or on Sound or directly on the song page themselves and just listen to these songs all the time because they love the music that's coming out from these artists. I'd say listen to those people's tweets. See what they say about it, because the rest of the people, maybe you moved on. Listen to both sides. But I think the perspective wise is like, those are the ones I like to listen to. Those are the ones that I obviously agree with. And the other side is like, maybe it's someone's moved on. Maybe they're no longer a founder, or the shot they gave at the space didn't succeed, and so they're not happy about it, right? Or there's like a million reasons why, or maybe they just don't know about it, and they see all of these people liking all these tweets that are saying this stuff, so they know this is easy clickbait. If I just say the music NFTs are dead or dumb or whatever, like people will love it and they'll feed on it and they'll call me smart and I'll get clicks and gratification from it. That's part of it too. And I think, it's just snowballed a bit on Twitter. I'm sure it'll pass. I mean, I don't know how long people can really get a kick out of like just dumping on something. And it'll age poorly. I think so. Like, it's kind of like all these amazing, reasons and passionate people and great founders and builders, and they're still here. They're still building it. The market's been in a bad spot. Like, what if we're in a bull market? I mean, things are looking up probably, right? I mean, you never really know, but there's some good market narrative out there. That will change things, right? Once the price is going up and if there's a secondary market, like all those same people that were a founder at some point or were, whatever it is, said, well, just release to Spotify. We'll all of a sudden say, they'll be the same people coming back and saying, I was there early. I knew. I was right. So I don't know. I think those takes will age poorly. But I think the part of it that is good to learn from is that we're not in our final state. There's still a lot to be created. And it's not gonna look exactly the same as now, but the principles that are here are definitely very key to the values and what's going to be created in the long run.
I find it very fascinating how much disdain people have for music NFTs within the crypto space relative to how little capital has been formed around them relative to the rest of the space. I mean, you look at PFP collections, you look at meme coins, these things are going to zero left and right every day. There's billions of dollars that are spent to them. But for some reason, I feel like people just like don't really care that 99% of all like PFPs are basically valueless at this point. But then for some reason, music does, $5 million of sales on Sound, and people are like, fuck this space. Like, this thing sucks. Like, it's just crazy.
Especially
to me,
when like the use case is like, it's like, okay, like, like, sure, it's speculative, right? But like PFPs are speculative, obviously. It has some of those features I talked about, like community aspects that are baked in, but what's the purpose? What's the reason for them? A lot of them, not much, right? What's the purpose of music NFTs? That's to change an industry for the better of artists, for the better of users, listeners, fans. There's a good, strong purpose and a good use case that it's working towards. And I think people, yeah, that's the unfortunate part, that people aren't registering. Yeah, it's a good use case.
Yeah, and I would also say that there's a lot of commentary that everyone was just buying music NFTs to speculate. Everyone's still buying music NFTs to speculate. My response to that would be like, you clearly haven't been collecting for the last 3 to 4 months because no one has had an expectation of there being a secondary market for a while. And people are still collecting. And they're
100%.
not collecting because they think that these things are going to go up overnight. There hasn't been like the secondary market in music NFTs has not existed since the bull market, basically, which was the same as pretty much every other NFT market. Now you could argue that
Yep.
there's outliers, but there's also outliers in music NFTs. And so I think that,
Yep.
this idea that people are solely collecting music right now because they believe that there's going to be a 100x return on it. I would say since all music NFTs have started to go to layer 2, the idea of there being a secondary market has kind of not really been a priority. And to your point earlier, the fact that one could emerge is what's cool about it, but people are not collecting because they think it's going to go up a lot. They're collecting because they just like being a part of this community. They like supporting these artists. They like being in these group chats. It's not a lot of people. I'll be the first to say that. But the people who are still here and who are showing up every week and buying multiple songs and spending $50, $100 a week, they're doing it because they love this shit. And I think the fact that there's a way that they can spend their money on the music that they like and support the artists that they love, that in and of itself is the reason why this space is not a failure. And so I would just say, is anyone really saying that everyone's just collecting because they think all these things are going to go up 100x? You haven't been collecting because that's not been the case for a long time at this point.
Yeah, and it's a feeling, right? I mean, people just enjoy it. It's fun. Like it's like you listen to a song, you love it, you buy it, you feel closer to it. Like it. Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of people aren't obvious. Yeah, you're right. People who's expecting to flip something tomorrow, or in any really near term, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be like a pretty big believer in like the future of it, and understand it and see the benefits in order to like be buying right now.
But I think that's where a lot of the disconnect come from, is I think that a lot of people in crypto only trade things that have an expectation of making a return. That's why you see Solana meme coins doing so well recently. That's why you see like PFP collections, having a revival now, is because people are like gravitating towards projects that are making the money. And if something's not making the money, they're just like, okay, this thing has failed. But I think people on chain specifically have a hard time believing that people could want to collect something in the absence of wanting to make a return on it. I think that everyone in crypto is so glued to this idea that I buy something because I want to make money on it, that they couldn't possibly fathom a world that someone just wants to buy something to support an artist or to be a part of a community in the absence of making 100x return. And I think that's very endemic of kind of this wider, what I believe to be the next cycle, is that people are going to use crypto apps because it just gives them status and belonging, not because they're going to make a bunch of money off of it. And if they do make money, that's great. And that's like the added benefit of the technology, but it's not the core focus. And I think people are having a really tough time wrapping their head around the fact that there could be the existence of products that are not meant to make you money, but they're just meant to give you a good feeling and just to make you feel good about the time that you're spending online.
100%. Yeah. I mean, in its current state where there's not much like gamification stuff outside of just collecting, even already in this state where like, you would think a lot of it would be all speculation. It's not even all speculation. It's like people are buying stuff because they literally just love the song, or they just love the artist, and like they want to build their on-chain identity, right? And they want to create a relationship on chain, and they want to be closer to the artist or closer to the community around the artist. It can be as simple as like you just love it and you just want it, like it means something to you.
Yeah, and I think we're getting up to closing thoughts here, but I would say just from a high level, it's been it's going to be really interesting to see how this ages, because I would say like you very uniquely had a very strong conviction on music NFTs. Basically the way I see this panning out is this bet's going to work, and these early NFTs are going to be worth something in a couple of years, or they're not. And the way that I look at it is like, if they're not, worst case scenario, the artist got paid. So it's like, yeah, I was wrong and I put my capital in the wrong spot to make a return on it, but I also helped hundreds of artists pay their rent. And I think something that a lot of the people on Twitter are just not recognizing is like, fuck music NFTs, it's a failure, etc. Bro, there's hundreds of artists who literally paid their rent during the pandemic by selling music NFTs. And like, I think that we're just completely forgetting about that because everyone wants to look at the fucking $1 million story, the 100x, etc. Dude, if you gave an artist $100 and they use that to be able to survive and make a little bit more music, that's a net positive in the absence of you ever doing anything with that music NFT again.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going anywhere. Like just look at what we've been through, and what the experiences have been so far. It's such an amazing application, and it's just going to grow from here. Like there's just look at the experiences. I mean, it's like, look at the artists you've collected, the relationships you've had with them, all the people out there that are collecting, all the music that's been put out that's amazing. Like, there's so much good that has come, and I think we just can't get ahead of ourselves on expectation, and timing and making everyone think that, hey, it's got to be a multi-billion-dollar category right now. Right? It's like I bet it will be, and like it's going to get there, and it's going to take a little bit of time. There's market cycles that are involved in it. We need more artists. We need more, people understanding it and collecting. We need more things beyond speculation, for sure. We need more gamification experiences, surfacing those feelings and those things that people love about it on the surface in social experiences within, communities. It's just a matter of time and work and people coming into it.
And I'm also really glad that these conversations are happening, because it's a really healthy way to move the space forward. I think people being very open about their opinions on what could improve on a product level, what could improve on a messaging level, why they don't like the space, why they think it's not successful. Say what you want, bash on NFTs all you want, but I guarantee what's going to happen is that all these founders are watching these conversations extremely closely, and the best ones are going to look at that and they're going to learn from it. They're not going to shut down their company on the back of someone saying music NFTs have failed. They're going to go, okay, cool. You guys don't like it for X, Y, and Z reason. Let me incorporate that feedback into my product to get more artists on board, to get more fans on board. And I feel very strongly we're going to come back in a year from now, and music products are going to be some of the strongest consumer crypto products in the space. They already are today.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it too is like, you think that they haven't thought of that. Like, I mean, a founder in the space that's been building this product for this long, like they realize that like a big portion of it is speculation, right? And they realize the benefits of it. There's the good and the bad. They're seeing that. They're already building towards that. Like these platforms are already thinking about how to improve the experience for the everyday interaction, and how to make it more social, how to make it, more of a native loop in experience, and like to like improve it. So like it's happening. It's been happening. The big thing we've had to get over is user experience, and a lot of that has been how we've gotten over a lot of that. Right? Like look at it used to be so bad. It used to be so bad. We only collect with MetaMask. It's only on mainnet. The transaction fees are crazy because something else is going on. Like there's, you can't pay with a credit card. You can't log in with now it's like you can go on a platform. You can sign up with an email. You can go buy a music NFT for $1 using Apple Pay face scan. And it's in your wallet, and you might not even know it's an NFT. And then, you just start getting access to things, comment on the song, etc. That's where we're at. User experience wise, we've come a long way. And so you got to realize there's been a lot of time put in. Products aren't built overnight. Like there's been a lot of time built in to get to that point. Now the focus of a lot of these founders is on some of the things that people are trying to point out, where it's like building out experiences to be more extensive beyond just ownership and collectability.
Well, Brett, I can always count on you for a nice, refreshing perspective on why music NFTs are GMI, to use your term there. But I also just want to say, man, it's been awesome being able to sit down during what feels like a low in the market, because we're going to have new highs, and it's going to be amazing to celebrate them. But I think it's great to be able to have a very honest conversation about where things are currently at. And I just really appreciate you just being a constant voice for the space. I appreciate the replies that you have out there. And I know that there's a lot of people who probably feel like the walls are crashing down and things aren't looking good. So, from one friend to another, thank you for just, putting yourself out there and really standing on business and saying and speaking up for what you believe in.
Thank you. And you too. You're important in the space. There's a lot of people that the space is built on, and keep the conviction, keep strong. And yeah, it's going to be, I can't wait to see what it looks like in the future.
And for people who want to stay up with your work outside of this episode, what's the best place to do so?
On Twitter, BlockchainBrett on Twitter, and then Also, Palm Tree Crypto for the fund, and that's the best place.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you so much, man. I'm excited to come back a year from now, see how things are going. But in the meantime, guys, stay hopeful out there. It's a tough time to be alive, but we're going to make it out the other side. So thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you again next week.
Music NFTs GMI.
See you guys. Peace.